So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at www.hubbardstonma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank
and
you.
With that being said, this is being recorded.
Yes, we have to announce planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. Very important. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Well, I think we have everybody here tonight. For members of the public, I'm the chair, Alice Livedall. Other members of the board who are here tonight are Bill Holman, Francois Steiger, John Demalia, our new member, Christopher Monroe. Am I saying, do you say Monroe? Pronounce it Christopher Monroe? Am I pronouncing that right? Yes, okay. And our associate member, Erica Dack. So we begin our meetings generally by opening, by allowing members of the public to speak. We don't necessarily respond to the comments made, and we ask you to keep them short. And if you're here to address a specific item on the agenda, you can hold your comment until we get to that agenda item. But having said that, do we have members of the public that are interested in speaking to us tonight in our public comments? Do you know, Mallory, is everybody else a participant?
It looks like we might have two members of the public. We have a Kristen and a Ariana.
Do you want to ask them if they want to speak about general matters or whether they're here on a specific matter?
Sure.
Let them speak. Okay.
All right. So Kristen or Ariana, do either of you want to speak on just a general matter, or are you here for a specific?
I'm just here to listen and see what's being said.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
And the other person? All right. I guess we'll move on from public comments. If we do have time for public comments at the end too. So if something comes up, you can speak then too, and we make a last call. We don't have minutes to approve tonight. So that's the third item on the agenda. Action items tonight. One of them, first of all, we're very excited. We have a new board member, Christopher Monroe, who's there. He was just appointed on Monday night. He can tell you a little bit about himself. I don't know a lot except from his resume. He is a lawyer. He's fairly new to town. He has been very active in nonprofit enterprises and particularly those involving sort of underprivileged special populations, which I think will prove helpful to us in our affordable housing capacity, perhaps. Anything you would like to say to the board, Christopher?
Well, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to participate in what's going on, and I'm excited for the opportunity to contribute.
Great. He's also got a wife that's in. Tell us a little bit about your wife. She's in municipal administration?
She is. She's actually in Wellesley now as their director of senior services.
That's wonderful. That will be. I hope she's can help us out as well. All right. Well, thanks very much for volunteering. We really needed that fifth member. All right. I'm going to move on because it could be a fairly lengthy night. One of the key items on our agenda tonight is a presentation for acceptance of 56 Gardner Road. It's an application for a special permit for a commercial marijuana establishment. And I can read a little bit more about it for the sake of the public. This little description comes from their traffic study. It says what's proposed is an adult use cannabis dispensary and greenhouse at 56 Gardner Road in Hubbardston, Massachusetts. The proposed dispensary would be 1,100 square feet of retail, 700 square feet dedicated to product storage and office space, a new 34,560 square foot cannabis greenhouse located behind the dispensary, and a new 9,840 square foot mixed use metal building for utilities, which would include water filtration system, electrical room, boiler room, a dry cure area, and a renovated 3,800 square feet of building for product manufacturing. So that gives you some idea. So support what has been filed to date, I believe, and all appeared on your document drive in connection with tonight's meeting. It included an application for a special permit, plans for the greenhouse submitted. It was a document from the manufacturer of those greenhouses, a structural engineering report, a stormwater management report, a traffic impact report, a community impact analysis, and a site plan. So our task tonight is to decide whether to accept the special permit application and site plan as complete. And if we do that, we will have a public hearing on December 17th. So I want to make it clear tonight, we're not really debating the merits. We're very focused on, can we accept this application as complete, which also doesn't mean it couldn't be amended in different ways as the process goes on. But so in order to complete, accept the applications, we also need to, which is in conjunction with this, accept a consultant fee agreement, which was in the package by our consultants, Places Associates, for doing all the legal and technical work, reviewing the application. And so we need to take action on those 2 points tonight. That fee for service agreement has been provided to the applicant. And the way this works is that our consultant contracts with us, but the applicant pays for his fees, which is very clear in our bylaws. So, and then there's an administrative fee of 15% on that. So we're going to need those 2 votes, one after the other. So again, we're not debating the merits. We're deciding whether the application, given those documents, is complete enough to accept. So I'd like to give, who's here on behalf of the petitioner? The application is submitted by Paper Crane Provisions, and it's Mr. Bowie that's here, right?
Bowie's here.
I'm sorry, Bowie, Mr. Bertold. But I'd like to give him a chance to speak first, if you'd like to. There he is. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I am here. You know, just wanted to touch on this. I was just emailing with the engineer, with Brendan, and Brendan Mallory I was discussing if we needed to actually give a formal presentation, and he assured me no, that this was just going to be the acceptance.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I could answer if you guys have any questions regarding the packet. I mean, fire away, but
I would just as soon hear from Mr. Murray, since he's here tonight, I believe, right? He had questions. I have read everything you've submitted. I do know there's this buffer zone issue, which was, I guess, raised in connection with the plan at the community outreach hearing. So that's one question I have, but let's hear from Mr. Murray about whether there's enough here for us to accept this tonight and move forward. Bill?
Sure. So what they're doing is they're doing a marijuana cultivation, distribution and retail sales. They're doing interior cultivation, and they're proposing to modify their application to include exterior cultivation on the site. But they've only given us sketch plans as to the revised material. So let me back up just a little bit. They gave us a very complete set of documents, but we pointed out in our initial review that they were not aware of the DCR regulations, which affected their plans pretty dramatically, cutting back the size of the greenhouse, and I don't know what other changes will happen. The other omission that they did is a site plan is required under the special permit regulations. So there are two separate applications that they have to make. They have to make a site plan application, and they need to make a special permit application for all of the marijuana associated activities. They've made the special permit application, but they have not made the site plan application. And as I said, they now have acknowledged that they have to pretty dramatically change the whole project as a result of the DCR regulations.
Question for you, Bill. So there was a site plan among his documents, but that's, but that was just for the special permit?
Right. The site plan has its own regulatory requirements that overlap special permit. It requires a different application form, and it has slightly different application criteria. So they made the special permit application, and I think they did that successfully, but they didn't make the site plan. So in my opinion, it's an incomplete submission.
Okay, so before we get a response, I guess I'm thinking about when, well, maybe we should get a response. Mr. Boto, what would you like?
Well-
Are you planning on submitting a new, a revision? There was a revised plan that circulated on Monday night, but it didn't circulate to this board. It circulated to the community outreach hearing.
So Bobrick Engineering has been revising the site plan all week. I mean, since we found out last Saturday that the current site plan and all the work that's gone into this thing so far was in violation of the watershed. That was unfortunate. You know, I'm not an engineer, so that I was kind of relying on the engineers to peel back that layer of the plan before we obviously put together that massive site plan with a 35,000 square foot greenhouse. So that is going to be scaled back to roughly around 11,500 square feet of greenhouse. So we will obviously amend. I mean, if there's a site plan submission that needs to happen, then we'll update it, or we will submit the site plan as well. But I think Mallory has been in contact with Brendan from Bobrick Engineering, and we were going to be updating things basically next week. We're going to, update the new plan. They have the new plan done, but they have to do the new stormwater report for that new plan. The good news is that the drastically reduced greenhouse reduces the impact of the entire site. I mean, this changes things dramatically. It shrinks it down by about 2/3. So they're working, Bobrick's on it. They're working on it. I mean, I know Brendan's been working on it since last Saturday nonstop. I'm not sure what else to say about that. If this is incomplete, you can't accept it, then obviously we'll be back on the 17th, our next available time to do it. I mean, again, this is tough. A lot of work has gone on into this up until this point. So for Saturday morning after Thanksgiving to get an email that my entire site plan was in violation of something that seemed pretty simple, except, I'm not a civil engineer, so I'm not peeling back the layers of the maps.
I understand that. And it's clear that you've put in a huge amount of work in what's been submitted. But I do think, we already have you on the agenda for the 17th, but it was supposed to be for the public hearing. But I can just say, as the planning board chair, even if we were to accept it and then say, okay, you can submit the amendments, the problem becomes that these multiple layers of plans become very confusing to the public too, as well as to us. And you wind up muddling through. So I would prefer if you came back on the 17th with the new plan that shows the grow area. And also, in addition to, I think you've done most of the work for the site plan, but if you could put in the site plan application, you can put references to the pieces that have been done, but at least that would comply. And the other thing that would help is our application for a special permit requires a summary of the proposed use, its location, purpose, and zoning district, and a citation to the zoning bylaw that apply to the special permit. And then you would also list the other special permit, most particularly the was that coming from, who's that? Okay, no, it's out.
Is everybody
And a list of all state, federal, and local permits. So if you could just do a cover letter that hits those things, if they're in 7.2 of the special permit application. And also in it, you can use that. I thought it was a beautiful description. Your traffic engineer it was in that I read from. You can just lift it out of that, but it will give the public a quick upfront description, and then modify accordingly the permit and the outside grow. And if you could also mention in the application, your business plan includes now courier service. So there is it's a complete description of everything you're doing.
Okay, so the reason that the courier portion of the retail business was not included in that initial was that regulation was voted on Monday, the 30th of this past week. So it wasn't even on the books until this week. So they literally voted on the law on Monday. So that's great. I will include that.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't if it was the only problem. And I think the main problem here is the watershed issue. The plans need to be redone. Plus, we should have that other application. That was maybe something we could fix, but I think in its entirety, it would just be better if we give it one more week, let your people get their plan done, submit the site plan application, exposes, you to less appealable things and us to less appealable things if it's all done correctly. And if you could just submit it with a cover letter, it sort of pulls it all together with us listing that criteria at 7.2, under application for a special permit, 4 things.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And
that would be great.
I apologize. The site plan application wasn't done. I mean, I kind of lay that at the engineer's feet. I'm not sure why,
Try to put it all together. We
Okay.
can, and we'll leave you on the agenda. And then with a public hearing would be our next, assuming that we can accept it. And I think we probably can when we see those. Then we can bump the public hearing to our first meeting in January because we meet the first and third Thursdays. And this is one of those, the following Thursday is Christmas Eve and the following after that is New Year's Eve. So
Okay. That would be if we could manage that, that would be perfect timing.
okay. Can you also, I know Bill's still there. Bill, are you're gonna have some time between now and the 15th where you could look at his additions?
Sure.
Okay, so I want to do that, but I also want, before we put this to bed, I want to ask Mr. Botrell, have you been able to look at Bill's service, fee for services and his consulting
Yeah,
document?
not a problem.
It's not a problem. Okay,
No.
then has the rest of the board been able to read it? It was on the documents posted tonight. Just sort of by way of explanation, Bill works for us, Places Associates work for us, but the applicant pays the fee. That's part of our bylaws. And I would like a motion if we were all ready and willing to do it, to accept the proposal from Places Associates for peer review permitting services. Somebody want to make that motion?
Yeah,
out
let's,
there?
Bill Holman's, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Alice, this is Francois Steiger. I'm seconding the motion.
Okay, so are there further discussion? Anybody have questions about what his review is going to entail?
Alice, it
Hearing
looks like-
none?
There is an audience member who has a question. So after the vote.
There is an audience member who wants to say something?
Yep.
Yes, we
All right.
can, part of the discussion, we can, if it's on this item, we can let her we can recognize her. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's actually Tom Bratko.
Oh, it's Tom. Okay, Tom.
He joined in.
I don't see his picture here, but Mr. Bradco, what would you like to add?
I was just wondering how I could get copies of the documents that they've presented so far to the planning board.
Mallory, you want to
Yeah,
answer?
I'll
it?
email those over.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Tom, Bill Murray,
Hi,
you
Bill.
might, you might want to wait until we get the revised documents because the documents that they submitted already are going to be pretty strongly revised.
No, I'd like to see all of them as they are now.
Receive.
Okay, can you take care of that, Mallory?
I'm doing it now. Yeah.
Tom, then you can ask for another set if you want to check in about a week, if anything news come.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I'm trying to, yes, I think since we have not accepted the application yet, that's the way to obtain it, is just to talk to Mallory, given the COVID situation. All right.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, everybody. You guys will have everything next week.
Thank you. And thank you
All
for
right.
understanding our situation. We know you've worked very hard on this, honestly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I want to move on to the next item, which is the VHB proposal to study the town gravel pit lots for use as affordable housing. And I have a little bit of background on this for the public and for Christopher, who's just joined us. Which is, we did an exhaustive search of all available public land in Hubbardston with, is part of a survey for a housing production plan a year ago. And there are very few lots. There's the one that Habitat is going to build a house on, but we do have gravel pits in town. And these gravel pits are, the main one is parcel 57. There's 4 in this study that's proposed. The biggest one and the primary one is lot 57. It's about 15 acres. And the other 3 are smaller lots across Pitcherville Road that may or may not have useful portions. They are impacted by wetlands, I can tell you that. But originally, so we have some problems. First of all, the planning board or the town owns this pit, which we need to do something with. And we are trying to sort of set an example for the other major gravel pits in town, which need to be restored. But this lot is not, it has a reasonable location to consider for affordable housing, and particularly senior affordable housing, which is what we have such a huge need for, because it is not very far off 68 down Pitcherville Road. And it has reasonable access to, would have reasonable access to like the Walmart Superstore, which is a supermarket, and the kind of things you would consider in citing senior housing. We also did I'm trying to remember the name, a municipal vulnerability study that identified as one of our most serious needs in town, the need for additional, particularly senior affordable housing. We could basically fill the senior housing we now have up 3 times from the waiting list. So with that in mind, we had originally asked VHB to do a study of this, plus this giant pit behind it that's owned by the Marinelli sisters. And they have since withdrawn their land from consideration because they're considering another use for it. So this is a pared down study. What it proposes is a 2-phase study. And the first phase is for 29,750 is to determine the highest best use and how affordable housing would fit in, and well, you can read in detail all their descriptions. If it then is determined that it is a reasonable setting for affordable housing, particularly senior housing, there would be a second phase that would actually lead to the production of an RFP, which could then be, we could put out to bid. And that second phase of the study is the more expensive part of it. It's $51,950. And Ryan says he's fairly optimistic that if we could get through the first part of the study, he could get a grant for the second phase, to fund the second phase of the study. And he would work to do that. So the other thing that I need to tell people is there is available affordable housing funds which have not been spent, which is available for this purpose if we decide to take on this study. So having said that, I'm open to questions. I don't know how many questions I can answer, but or to a motion to accept it or a motion to pass over it.
Alice, Bill Holman's all, let me see if I can get this video to work without me cutting out. I'll make a motion to go ahead with the study and move on with this project. I think it's a good project for the town that we've been talking about for many years, and it's one step closer to it. I think it's awesome.
Is there a second? And then we'll open it for discussion.
This is John D'Amelio. I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Francois. I do have some questions. I'm
Yes.
looking for- Okay. I'm looking at the compensation sheet on page 7 of 8, and I'm just trying to understand the different phases here and how they fit in here. Can you maybe just go through them? I don't know if you can share your screen or if you want me to share the screen.
Yeah, the problem is it's the one document I didn't reread today. I've read it a couple of times. So you can put it on the screen if you have that talent. I don't. But the scope of services would be to first create a base map of the
I'm
location.
sorry to interrupt here. If the host is, who's the host? Is that Mallory or is that you, Alice?
No, it's
That's
Mel.
me. I'm gonna give you the capabilities right now, and it looks like Bill Murray has his hand up too, just so you
Okay.
know.
Because it says that I do not have participant screen sharing capabilities. So let me know when that has been enabled.
Well, maybe I can just quickly through the headlines and not get too into the weeds here, but so they're going to, the first step is that they would do a base map creation, which is not actually sending surveyors out in the field, but using GIS information, public documentations, some aerial photography that exists.
I'm
And
sharing.
try to prepare a plan.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but I'm sharing my screen. So if you can just refer to the actual page, I can just have
Okay,
it.
that's on page 2.
Very good. I do have that.
This is under scope of services. So they would do this base map, which doesn't exist at the moment. And it also, there are issues because this was an old pit that the, the contours are difficult. They're not, because it's been altered. So there was some discussion devoted to that. Anyway, they would do it a zoning assessment. So they would, which is not just the fact that it is in a residential agricultural district, which it is, but to look at setbacks and coverage restrictions and overlay that information so they can decide what could be built. They would do a preliminary utility infrastructure assessment. That actually is important because, we don't have public water or sewer, and and you have to figure out where the electric lines come in and how you would do that. Then they would develop an initial conceptual site layout that would try to superimpose the uses we want on top of it, see if they would fit, such as residential or a mixed use layout. And then create a report based on that, generating several alternatives, but they're talking about residential affordable housing on Town Lot 57 and the same thing, but residential affordable mixed use. And then they're going to look and see, also, they're not going to limit it totally to affordable housing. If there are some other uses that they could suggest, they could put them in. But the reason they're going to focus on affordable housing is because it would be the planning board as the Affordable Housing Committee putting up CPA funds to develop affordable housing. So that's why we get first dibs on any use that they would have, and that's the focus of the plan. Then they do conceptual layouts. they would do a due diligence report to us. It's a summary of existing conditions, a review of the activities they had, a narrative for each alternative developed, a preferred narrative and why, and then where to go from that point. So that would include site tours. They have this under project management and meetings, which is task 4 after the due diligence report. They talk about touring the site, the confirmation of the base plan map, the concept review meeting, draft of the due diligence report, and a client conference. And then you have enough, or at least Ryan believes you would have enough at that point to write a grant to fund the rest of it. So that's, which would then be the groundwork and the, developing. It's more expensive. It's 2/3 of the cost. Developing an actual document.
So, Madam Chair, I'm just going to go quickly down to the schedule.
Francois, it's very broken up. Say again.
I am going to move now to the compensation section.
Yeah, the compensation page. That's what the 29,750 is.
So this is the amount, right?
Yes. I think it's, we have, I don't know that Christopher knows this, we do have some other, some other affordable housing initiatives we have, we've considered, which are tax title lands. I'm going to talk about that later. But other than that, there is no town-owned land which doesn't need this restoration work, which is available. This is sort of what the town owns. So the question is, do we want to spend this money in this way? We do have it available because $50,000 was appropriated for use to develop affordable housing, and it had not, in a meeting actually in FY 2016, and it has not been spent, and it should be either spent, appropriately or returned, I would say. So this is one suggestion.
Just to be clear, we did at one point in time grant money for the tax titles and liens. Was any of that utilized at all? Is that
Yes?
all
Yes,
available?
I have a new report. That was 15,000. I think it was 5,000 per each of the 3 lots we considered.
Yep.
And I do have a report later in it, and I do actually have a spending report. I don't think I printed it out. It came with it.
I'm just trying to understand
the
whether
bases are about 3,000 spent. They've all been entered, and I'll give that report later.
okay,
But
good.
it's capped at 5,000.
So we do have monies left over from that, correct?
We do have, yes, the rest of that money exists.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Has appropriated already. It doesn't need to be revoted by the town.
Alice, Bill Murray has his hand up.
Bill, yes, please, Bill.
Hi. As you know, I've been kind of looking at all the town lands for a very long time. There are a couple of things on this site that need to be brought to the forefront so that it's not missed. The DPW has been using this site as a dumping site for street sweeping for decades. So before we go looking into the feasibility of putting housing on here, that's what I call a potential showstopper. Somebody needs to take a look at the quality of the soil and see if there's an issue with utilizing it for residential housing. And there are other potential issues with the property. And if you do in fact hire VHB, what I respectfully request is that they reach out to me so that I can inform them of a lot of the other facts about this property that I know before they proceed.
The quality of the audio is terrible. Can you back up a
Alice,
little?
I can't understand a word he's saying.
Bill, we need to have you repeat some of that and see if we can get better audio. Oh,
I can try a tough connection. I'm gonna try a chat.
okay.
Francois, can you just make me chair again? So that I can maneuver the chat and stuff.
We'll be happy to. While I do
Thank
that.
you.
Here we go. I think what he has to say is important. I know he's working remotely. It involves quarantine situation. All right, why don't we? What do you want to do, folks? We could.
Bill Murray needs to be muted.
Seen it for years. Okay, he's got a
Oh,
message.
better.
Can you see that, Mallory?
Yeah, we can read it out loud. It says, I know about the site. The DPW has been using it for years as a street sweeping dumping ground. I have a lot of knowledge about this site. And if you do retain VHP, please have them contact me.
Okay.
I think
Okay,
he was saying something too about the soils and perkability for being a residential building site. That's what I kind of got to.
So it sounds like his advice to us is that we should have a soil analysis before committing ourselves further.
There's an additional comment.
Yes,
Hazmat should be an issue firstly, and soils are great and will perk well. That's per Bill Murray. I think the concern that he does bring up is the dumping of the sweeping dumping that's been done there, and as a result of that, the potential that there be hazardous materials at the site.
maybe what we should do is hold off on this vote, table the vote, if that's the right administrative procedure, and take his advice and ask the VHB people to contact Bill Murray with respect to what he knows about the soils before we commit ourselves, and then put this on the agenda again for the 17th. Does that make sense?
I would agree, especially given the fact that this is a lot. I mean, it is a significant amount of money. It's not pennies. So I think it makes sense for that to be presented back to us with any kind of findings.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, Bill Holmans, would just any of this soil testing already be part of this project? If they went forward with what we were discussing, wouldn't they check the soils?
I didn't see that in the document. Bill.
Yeah, I honestly
Okay.
don't see it. I see a base map creation, so it's I don't think there's any harm in kicking it down the road 2 weeks and trying to get an answer to that question.
Madam Chair, I'll withdraw my motion at this time.
Okay, withdraw the motion at the time, and Mallory, can you tag it to be on the agenda for the next meeting? And I will contact Ryan and relay through him our concern about soil contamination, wanting some assurance on that before we go into a full-scale study. All right?
May I suggest that also the VHB be contacted so that they can speak with Mr. Murray in regards to this matter. So if they do provide some form of an analysis that can be included as part of the survey, that they therefore add that into their proposal.
Yeah, or make it, and then make it a preliminary thing. So all bets are off if it's too,
Either as a prerequisite or as part of the proposal.
I will do that, and I will copy you all on that correspondence.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on to new business, and we have to call on Francois because he asked me to put this on the agenda. And it regards complaints regarding the storage of unregistered vehicles at 241 Gardner Road. I would say in connection with that, there is a general bylaw that forbids the storage of unused and unregistered motor vehicles. It's a little one paragraph thing, provision. It's chapter 27, and it's section 1, and it says no person except the holder of a license granted under section 58 of chapter 140 of the general laws, or a junk dealer duly licensed under the town bylaws, said license issued by the Board of Selectmen, shall keep or permit to keep exposed on his premises more than one unused or unregistered motor vehicle. And such motor vehicle shall not be within 150 feet of a public way or within 50 feet of a property line. So that's the law that backs this up. But would you like to explain the situation?
First of all, I just want to, first of all, thank you for allowing me to discuss this here. I did, as a matter of fact, reach out to Ryan, and we did a little bit more digging into this here. I believe there's only two entities in town that currently have that are allowed to store unused motor vehicles. The property registered at 241 being a non-commercial location, being a residential commercial, being therefore a residential location, is not one of these two that have class 2 auto dealer licenses. And so as a result of this here, myself and Bill Holmans have received some questions and concerns that are being relayed by individuals from within the town, that at this location, 241 Gardner Way, there are indeed multiple vehicles that are stored there. And there appears to be also some actual work being done on these vehicles. Bill, do you have some additional information that I may not have included as part of?
There was also, Bill Holmans, there was also a complaint made that the Board of Health is up at the top of the hill where you can't see it from the road, on the private residence that owns the property right there. Piles of debris. There's a big problem up there with burning and throwing materials around and trespassing, and that I believe was brought to the other boards. The other thing that in regards to this would be the fact that it's not a commercial zone area. It's a residential area, so it's also in violation of our zoning bylaws in that aspect.
So I think what I suggested the last time around when we were meeting here is that as a planning board, having received communications from members of the public who are expressing concerns of what is happening at 241, that we notify both the select board as well as the building inspector to that effect, and have them investigate as to whether or not the entity at 241 Gardner Way is in compliance or not with the bylaw.
Francois, just a point. I don't believe it's 241. That's the wrong side of the street.
I think it's 248.
My apologies.
Yes, it is.
Is it wrong on the agenda? 248, is it?
Yeah, it should be 248.
My apologies then. So yes, whoever lives on 241, my apologies. It is actually then 248, yes.
I guess I have a concern that, I mean, just an interesting problem. You have, it probably is a violation, and then the zoning enforcement officer might be, is in charge of zoning violations. But it's also, if you look at this section, it doesn't prescribe a penalty or an enforcement way to enforce it. But I think that the way this would read is where it says the only person allowed to have these vehicles is somebody that holds a license.
Mhm.
And the penalty for having cars on the property without a license is $50 a day. It's in chapter 16, which is the immediately preceding pages, section 14. So if you're talking about a penalty situation, that's an enforcement of a licensing rule, that would be, seems to be more in the purview of the police department. So maybe in addition to the zoning enforcement officer and the select board.
Can I make a suggestion? We send it to the
Yes.
select board and ask
Go.
them to recommend who it should go to. Just, I think the community's contacted myself quite a few times to make a complaint, and I know Francois stating the same thing. That's why we thought it would be a good idea to bring to the board, to make it an official, to send it off to the selectmen.
You think it should just be sent to the selectmen? Is that what you're saying?
Whatever is appropriate, Alice. I'm not sure. This is my first time in the planning board, but we thought it was something that should be brought forward. That's all.
And it would be under the purview of the select board, given the fact that it is part of the general bylaws, and it is for them to review what the situation is, and from there, take the appropriate actions.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the planning board draft a letter to the select board saying we've had numerous complaints. The board members have had, I shouldn't say numerous, I don't want to exaggerate, but board members have had multiple complaints
Yes.
concerning unregistered vehicles stored at 248 Gardner. It's Gardner Road.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Plus, I would dare say, Bill, and I myself, I think we have evidence that ourselves having driven up on Route 68 towards the Gardner Way.
Okay, so one of the problems we're dealing with, which comes back to bite us all the time on this, in these situations, people come to us, is that there's a general reluctance, I think, certainly by the zoning inspector, he's pretty open about it. But maybe the police and so forth, that, well, they're not, no, they're not anonymous complaints. So I guess the question is, if I drafted such a letter and I can bring it back to the board to consider, but are the two of you who are eyewitnesses to it willing to put?
I am willing, Alice, at this point in time, I am willing to state that, having driven myself, and Bill, you can chime in if you wish to join me on this here. Having driven myself up on 68, I have observed at 248 Gardner Road, the storage of numerous, and we're talking probably 20 plus vehicles that at least are visible from the road at the angle that one is driving by, that appear to be unregistered. And it would seem that, from at least from my perspective, that that's not the right conduct of a private owner to have vehicles such on their premises. And Bill, would you concur with me on that?
Yes, Francois. I just wanted to let you finish your statement.
Right.
I do agree with what you're saying, and again, I'll put my name to a formal letter also if you want to write it up with our name.
Do you want me to bring the letter back to the board to see?
I don't think it's necessary. I think from my perspective, I trust that the way that you are going to be presenting this here as a concern that is being brought up by members of the community and therefore witnessed by myself and by Bill.
Bill, are you happy with that too? I'll just compose it and send it along the lines of what
I'm
we
okay
said.
with that.
Okay. All right.
It's also worth noting, I couldn't find the timestamp on it, but when I was preparing for this meeting, I looked at the address on Google and Google Maps. And when you look at the satellite or the overhead view, you can see better than 30 cars in that yard.
Wow.
So
yes, it's more than that, Christopher. I went up there and went up the access road to the solar farm, and it's a mess up there. And I know the complaint formally went to the Board of Health about this too.
Okay. All right, we will try to get some action on it, and I'll make.
Thank you very much, everyone.
That's helpful to know the satellite photography clearly. All right, I will send the letter. Send you all copies. Christopher.
Oh, yes. I couldn't find the timestamp. They only fly over and take the pictures once a year or so. So it's not necessarily a fair representation of what it is right now. It just shows that at the time they did the flyover, there were that many cars.
Okay. thanks. That sounds like a major problem. We'll try to address it, see if we can get somebody to address it. We're not the enforcement agency, you know, we have to rely on somebody else, but maybe we can get the ball rolling here anyway.
Thank you.
All right, I
Thank you.
have, I have this, that B on this is the update on the roads list. I know this is like something that's maybe my own personal thing, but we know we've had these questions about roads come up, both with Streeter Road, most recently with North Comet Pond Access Road. And it's come to my attention that there are roads that are not on the scenic road list or on the, we have two lists we've working for in our documents. You'll see them in the folder, Christopher. There are scenic roads and non-scenic road lists. So as a novice coming in, I thought, okay, a road is either scenic or it's not scenic, which doesn't mean that a non-scenic road isn't scenic, but it's not specifically designated scenic. And those should be all the roads in town. But that's clearly not the case. So I said to, this particularly came up with North Comet Pond Road, where we had to make a determination that it was a way in existence because it wasn't on any official record, you know, and all of that whole statutory procedure. So I said to Ryan, we need a road list. And he wrote back to me and said, oh, well, we have a road list. It's Travis's Chapter 90 roads list. You know, Chapter 90, where the state gives you funds for your roads, makes you compile this information. So I said, well, great, have him send it. So it's an Excel spreadsheet. And I compared it against the scenic and non-scenic road lists. And I discovered that our scenic, non-scenic road lists are missing 17 streets. And not only that, but the Chapter 90 list is missing some roads that are on the scenic, non-scenic list. So so Ryan and Travis and I are gonna try to sort these out. I think it's not as much of a mess as it sounds like. I think the problem is that the scenic road lists, even though they're dated 2017, have in fact really not been updated since the 70s when the original scenic bylaw was passed. So I'm thinking most of these 17 roads are you know, either roads with different names or they're roads that have actually been built since the scenic road list was updated. And I told him also, I think it would be helpful for us to have a list of private roads, which also is an issue. Is a road public or is it private? So we're going to try to create a better list and make sure we can straighten this out for us and for future planning boards.
Perfect.
So just to let you know, that's what that's about. And I should have that list, maybe not at the next meeting, but pretty soon. Okay, and the next thing is, it's just it's a catch-all, matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I almost never have anything to say in that, but something did come up, which was more of an oversight, and that is, then it got added to your documents late in the game, which is a problem because you really should not be amending any agenda after it's posted. But I bring it up in this, it's a survey that Ryan would like you to complete, everybody to complete. It doesn't lend itself to sort of group thinking, you know, it's an individual survey about what you think is important about the town's character, what do you think the 5 biggest problems are in the town, what about internet service. It's sort of your chance to weigh in prioritizing problems, and it should be very helpful for our master plan endeavor. So I told him I would, and he's trying to get it done by the end of the week. So my question for each of you is, can you access that survey? It's called the Town of Hubbardston Community. Now I've got to find what its name is. It isn't titled on the document, but it was added to documents for tonight. Community Service Survey, I guess. It's in the town drive. And either download it annotate it and sell it and send it back to him, or I don't think it's a form you can fill in unless you're very clever and know how to convert something into a fillable form. But try to take a few minutes and get it back to him by the beginning of next week. It seems to be very important to him, and I felt bad about not seeing it earlier and getting it out to you before Thanksgiving. So that's what that's about. Old business, and again, for Christopher's knowledge, we keep items that are ongoing, open items on this agenda, even if there are not updates. So, but I do have some updates this time. So there's nothing new under the solar fields. There's nothing new on 91 Williamsville Road. The solar field at 147 Williamsville Road, Bill is waiting for materials to come back. And they did send a note saying they would not be able to attend tonight's meeting. These materials relate to the installation of the battery storage unit and how it affects many things about the special permit on that property. And I think basically we're in good shape on that, but we do need the final report to come in.
Yeah.
So again, we'll carry that over. Maybe I'll have more next time.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt here.
Francois, go ahead.
I did attend a good chunk of the select board meeting, where I'm reverting back to the survey. It was my understanding, and maybe I have this wrong, that this is the actual survey that will be actually going out to all of the people in town for them to fill in. So would it be fair for me to interpret that what Ryan really wants here is for us to look at the survey and add or look at whether or not the questions themselves should be changed, enhanced, modified in any way, shape, and form? It's not really for us to fill it out, but rather for us to provide input towards the survey itself. Is that what you're looking for? Or is
that right? Then I have to change what I've asked you to do. This has no real direction on it.
Well, that's why I'm asking you this here, because my understanding was from the
I thought he was looking for your input. He's just your personal input. He's looking for I don't know. All right. I just don't know how we would discuss this as a board. I guess we could try.
Well, I'm just thinking that he probably wants, our board's input on this here, because if there's information that is being collected that could be useful or that is missing here that we could use as a planning board, as an example, this is probably a good chance for us to add either additional questions or requests for additional information when this goes out.
All right, I had misunderstood what he's looking for.
And I might be wrong, but that was how I interpreted it when I heard him, because he mentioned the same thing to the select board. And I was under the understanding that this is all information that will be actually going out to the town. But again, I may have misinterpreted what he was saying, and you may have had it right, or it could be vice versa. So I'm trying to get some clarity here.
I'm sure.
Bill Homans?
Yes, Bill.
I'm looking at the email at the bottom of it. It says community survey. This is mostly for the select board, but the planning board has some questions in this updated community survey document. I anticipated you might want, if you have additional questions, please let me know. I am trying to field the survey at the end of the week. Ryan McLean.
Okay, I apologize. All right, so the question is, what do we think about it? Is there additions or corrections? I don't know. Do you want to go through it? It would take a while, but not too long, I guess. Get back to him.
Alice, would it be better, instead of us taking the meeting time tonight, can we all kind of survey it and send you an email, or Mallory, our comments on it? Would that make a little more sense?
I actually think that's a fairly good idea. Would anybody mind to do that? So that Mallory, could you, if we all read them and sent comments, could you put them together?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can get them to Ryan.
Because he did want it before our next meeting.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to gather all the comments into a document.
Yeah.
Speaking for all of us, but we could speak individually. All right.
Definitely can do that.
This is, I'm kind of embarrassed by my lack
No,
of.
no. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I apologize. I was
All right,
not here.
So don't read it as to how you would answer it, but to how good the survey is, right? And
Correct.
questions you'd
Yes.
like to see added or subtracted.
And again, I think we need to look at it from the perspective, from a planning board perspective, what makes sense if we would like to have information. This is the one chance where we can reach out to the town and potentially get information that impacts and affects us from a planning board perspective.
Yeah, especially number 4, the 5 biggest problems on the town in the town. Is more like services oriented, his service and character of the town, and not amenities oriented, which I think a lot of people might be interested in. All right, well, take a look and please respond to Mallory and she'll put them together.
Thank you.
Okay, because I do think it's too tedious to do something like that in a called meeting tonight of this kind. All right, there's nothing new on the Tasto reclamation for Christopher's information. That's a gravel pit that we've approved a reclamation plan based on sort of artificial topsoil. And we had hoped to have it done. And the plant that manufactures the topsoil uses the sludge from a paper mill. And the paper mill has had no sludge since the coronavirus shutdown. So I don't know what the future of this ultimately is. It's an interesting problem.
May I suggest something?
Sure, Francois.
In the discussions that I had with the gentleman who was presenting the firm who was going to bring in the material, he had indicated this was really all as a result and the consequence of the issue with COVID. COVID is definitely going to be with us, at least my opinion, for a while. And so as a result of this here, that paper mill may be impacted for a potential duration that extends beyond, obviously, this year and maybe also into 2021. Would it be fair for us to just ask the Kataistos if they have any other plans, number one, or second, to ask them as to whether or not they have any interest on continuing to pursue this here, but with the vision that this could potentially go extend into 2022 so that they can still be considered as a gravel pit for reclamation. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this really had a good momentum, and it was sort of the first gravel pit that we were going to put in a reclamation. And if we can, again, understanding the consequences of COVID and which it has also on the industry itself, but expecting that there is going to be some recovery into the late 2021 timeframe and definitely into hopefully the 2022. I think we want to keep this one warm and make sure that this still has viability into the future, and we don't just leave it like many of the other gravel pits where nothing has been done.
I'll send a letter for an update inquiry.
Thank you.
Alice, would it be possible in that letter just to stipulate, we understand your circumstance with the shutdown, slowdown of the paper mill products that you were going to utilize in the finalization of your plans? And as a board, do we need to extend their permit or leave it as is? When does their permit expire for this?
I think special permits are good for, you have to start the work within 2 years. I think, I have to look it up.
Well, that will be 2021, right?
Yeah. Which doesn't mean they couldn't come back, you know.
I think we want to.
I just don't want to see them spend more money if they try to come back. I know it was tough for them, and as a community and the board, I think we need to take that into consideration because they are trying to do the right thing with this gravel pit to close it off. Not gravel pit, but pit.
It was a clay pit.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, and I would put a sympathetic tone on the letter because I do understand what they're up against. I can't remember his name now. The agent was just exasperated with the fact that they gone to all this work and then.
Yeah, they were part of Casella Reclamation.
Yeah.
Forgot the
Yeah.
name
Jim
of
Talby.
Mr. Talby, right?
That's correct. And I think it would be good for them to know that if they do require an extension, that they ought to consider doing this here in the early part of 2021 and not let it completely expire.
Okay. I will do that.
Thank you.
At least keep it alive. Okay. Affordable housing. I have some information from Sandy. This is the next item on the list. I did write to Sandy. I said, can you give us some update? And again, for Christopher's sort of background, again, looking for affordable housing, we looked at tax title lands to see if any of those could be obtained for housing, affordable housing. And we identified a number of lots, but 3 only really had the potential that weren't like wetlands or backland or something. And we agreed as to use some CPC money to see if we could secure the titles. And the agreement with the town administrator and select board is we would advance these funds, and then if they were able to obtain title through the tax foreclosure proceedings, we would be able to use them for affordable housing sites. If that all panned out. First, we'd get first choice to do them, and if the landowner paid up all the money to the taxes, there is a procedure, but because he can't immediately restore it to CPA funds, but that we would get the benefit of those funds in future, for future affordable housing projects. We'd get the support of the town. So those 3 roads were a parcel on Old Westminster Road, a parcel on Streeter Road, and another parcel off Streeter Road. And what she writes, the attorney, who's David J. Coppola, Coppola is the one that, they're specialists in land court proceedings. And they write, the cases involving these properties were filed on June 29th, 2020. The court appointed a title examiner. The court appointed title examiner has to file his report with the court by September 23rd, 2020, which, that was the order, so it's probably been filed. And it said, we are currently waiting for the court to issue notice to the parties with a legal interest in the properties for both cases. So it is likely that the court will issue notice in this case within the next 30 days. And this was dated Wednesday, November 25th. So we may have more news as the month go on in the next month or so. It's interesting, none of these people so far have tried to redeem it by paying the back title. So we're still in the game on those. And I had also a financial report on it. There was a $5,000 appropriated for each case, and they're about $3,000 into it. Has been spent on them. So I don't have any more, but that's at least some good news. I want to skip over this report from the MIH seminar for a minute and just give you a report on the Habitat for Humanity House project. I was trying to figure out where this stands. And I wrote to Ryan, I said, where, because the Carolyn Reed, who's the head of Habitat for Humanity in this area, has been looking. We've been trying to get it started. It's been a year we've been dealing with it. And I was shocked to find that they have not even sent the purchase and sale agreement. So I did get confirmation just today that now the purchase and sale agreement is officially in Carolyn Reed's hands, so in Habitat for Humanity's hands. So hopefully we can get that signed, because I know that their board is working on a project for this land, and she was looking for it. So hopefully we've got that back on track. This seminar I went to, it was a Zoom seminar about a month ago, bringing affordable senior housing to small and rural towns. I tuned in because it's just really what we're trying to do with the gravel pits, and it was very nicely presented seminar about some towns that have done this. And they did stress a few things, which I think are worth keeping in mind. One of which is it's a long game plan. Usually takes about 8 to 10 years between when a project gets really started and when, is an idea conceptually, and when you actually have people move in. So we've got to be in it for the long term. They also said there's a real lack of good sites. So the fact that we're considering surplus land is not surprising. A lot of towns are doing this. And they also said the surplus land often does not work out. And they say because it's either not in a good location, which in this case with our gravel pits is not the case. Our location is actually fairly good. But also because of restoration issues and siting issues. And so anyway, it's kind of, at least from the perspective of the participants, maybe a long shot. They say there's not, when you put out a request for proposal for these projects, they go to a limited number of companies who are willing to build and run the projects generally, and that know how to do it and how to work the tax credits. And there's kind of a shortage of those outfits. And they generally expect the land to be a given, not something that they're going to have to restore. So I don't know. I just thought, having heard that from these folks, I should bring that to the attention of the board. They also said that you don't want to plan for more than 20, if you plan for more than 24 people, housing for more than 24 people from one water source, you then become a public water supplier, which is an additional cost, something I hadn't thought about. And they actually, in some of these projects that went forward, were careful to limit the number of units to under 24. They also they also provided a list of tax credit programs, and they discussed some of those issues. I think it's pretty far down the line from where we are, but I just wanted to mention it. They're a great outfit, and if anybody else would like to attend some of the Mass Housing Institute seminars, let me know. And we'll try to attend together. I did go in person to one too. It's really a group of people that have done this work. They're the volunteers more than the professionals that have put these things together. So their insights are great. So that's it for affordable housing. Master plan, no updates. Bylaws. We were being pressed Monday night at the select board's meeting to get our bylaws, whatever we want to put on the town warrant, together. And they've given up on the idea that you're going to have public hearings in person. So which just again, by way of background, we did a new sign bylaw, which desperately needed redoing. And we completed it, and it was a warrant article. And then the town meeting went virtual, and we were asked to take everything but essentials off it. And we've never even had our own public hearing on it. So again, it's our decision, but if you'd like to schedule a public hearing on the sign bylaw, I can send it out in the next package, and we can.
Alice, Bill Homans.
Yeah, Bill.
One question, I did review that survey that Ryan sent out, and one of the questions on it is regarding new business in town, sign bylaws. Is our sign bylaw too strict? Would we attract more business if we allowed bigger signs? So those questions are in that survey too. Should we put this to a town vote before the survey is done?
I don't know when that survey has been going to be done. I mean, what Brian told me was the problem with the old sign bylaw was not that it was too strict. Well, there is this issue about lit signs and LED signs. But aside from that, the chief complaint was that it was completely contradictory and unreadable and unworkable, and people threw up their hands. So I don't know. I mean, we've got a new board member. Maybe what we should do is just post it. Put it in documents for next time. let everybody read it through one more time, bring it up to speed also. You know, sometimes when you let things sit on the shelf and you read it again, you see errors or things.
I'm
you would-
actually okay with what we did. I think it's a good plan. I just throwing that out there because I saw it in that survey, that's all.
Bill, let me ask you this question. I mean, having it there in the survey, if the survey is going to go out very soon, and for all intents and purposes, we're planning on having a public meeting to review the sign bylaw. I think if anything, those two things are very well aligned. The vote that will actually take place, if this goes all the way down to town meeting, that would not happen until probably sometime in the mid-June timeframe, end of June timeline. I think that is,
That's,
the alignment is
and I
good.
think you're absolutely right, Francois. I just wanted to throw it out there so everybody thought about it, that's all.
No, I think you bring up a good point, but I also look at it from the perspective that I think the fact that it is on the survey will actually heighten the interest of anybody who is interested in participating in the discussion as we review the signed bylaw and have public meetings on them. That's the point I wanted to make.
Let's do this. Let's put it back in the documents for next time.
Mhm.
Everybody read it over one more time, and we'll put as an action item, schedule a public hearing for it.
I think that's a great idea.
Sounds
Thinking
good, Alice.
possibly
Thank
the
you.
first meeting after the first of the year, January. You know, you would have to make it available to the public, and I don't know who would participate, but we have to have a public hearing, and then we have to vote to put it on the warrant, right? And then the whole town gets to vote again. So
Well, we have to present it, if I understand it correctly. This has to be presented to the select board. The select board eventually has to also approve it, right?
yes, but we should have our public hearing first, I think, Francois.
No, you're absolutely right. What I'm saying is it's not just
Right.
we vote for it and then it goes to the
Right,
town.
right. We can't put anything on the warrant. It's gotta go
Additional
through
step.
them.
Correct.
Right. All right, so Mallory, can you dig it up and put it on for next time?
I'll try to find it. Just want to keep in mind too that we're looking at paper cranes for the first week meeting in January too. So you might want to push it to the second one.
Oh,
The
the
hearing
public
next
outreach
month.
hearing. Yes. Possible meeting then, but let's let everybody read it again and make that decision on the 17th as an action item to schedule it. Okay, so then there were there were a couple of other things discussed with the select board, but one of the other bylaws that needs some work is the solar bylaw. And we had gone last time with we went to the select board, we got some pushback from the select board, but basically we decided, we presented to them a new siting technique and to increase setbacks and to increase the minimum size for a solar field, which is now quite small.
Mhm.
So that needs some work too. And that needs the same thing. If we're going to make changes, we've got to have a hearing on that as well. So I would say, Mallory, let's also do the same with that, but I'm going to have to get some material to you before
Okay.
then. Okay?
Thank you.
To consider whether we want to put those changes on. And then finally, which is a new, not so new now because we've been batting it around for a few months, but is to come up with a battery storage bylaw for energy storage.
Right.
And I did get, which is interesting, following our meeting on Monday where we were with the select board, a note from the chair of the select board, Dan Gallant, and the company he works for installs these battery systems.
Mm-hmm.
And he pointed one out in particular that they did for, if you know, the huge windmill that's at Holy Name campus, that now has a battery storage unit that his company put in. So he said he would try to help me as well. And then also Christopher said his
Right.
wife might be able to shed some light on what other communities are doing. So,
Now, since our meeting, I also understand that there is if not the largest battery storage facility that is in the state, maybe in all of New England, that is actually in Mount Tom in Holyoke. I'm trying to get some more information on that, and I will try to see if I can pursue that. So there's quite a lot of good information out there. I think one of the things we are still trying to also ascertain is as to whether or not these are towns or cities that have ordinances or bylaws that already have been put in place that we could potentially model ourselves with, use it as a model.
Yeah, yeah. If you have an ordinance, it's easy to convert an ordinance to a bylaw. I mean, not simple, but not too bad. We should.
Well, now that we
Okay,
have,
so we've got three of us kind of thinking about that and working
Okay.
with it. Maybe we can exchange.
I think what will be important to note here is we do have some limited timelines when it comes to the to any kind of warrant articles, right?
Right.
So I think we need to make sure that we have that timeline front and center. Would you have that available right now, or can we get that? So by the next meeting, we know what our bogey is when it comes to the drop dead dates, by when we need to make sure that this is done and completed by our side before it gets presented to the select board.
Mallory, can you find out when they're going to open the warrant and close it? Our ideas, if not
Sure.
firm dates? Well, I don't mean you have to look it up right now. You can let us know.
Oh, no, I'm just going to shoot an email while it's fresh.
Okay. I know it gets very tight after the first of the year, so that's why I want to keep it on the agenda, and we'll try to deal with those issues instead of at the bottom of the agenda, at the top of the agenda on the 17th, if we can. 17th again, though, is, you know, the marijuana facility is going to take substantial time. The last of this category of old business is a special permit for 26 Gardner Road. And again, more for Christopher's sake than anybody else. What this project is it's a storage unit facility on 68 at 26 Gardner Road that we have issued a special permit for. Not a special permit, I'm sorry, a site plan review. It was the use allowed as a right. But it was contingent upon the drainage plan being worked out with our engineers, which had a few glitches. And then we also, as part of his scope of work, he's going to draft an opinion, do a draft opinion for us. And so we're waiting for those two pieces to come to fruition. And again, possibly at our next meeting, we should have those. We've approved this agenda has an error in it. It's not a special permit. It was a site plan review. That was my error. Anyway, we should have a report back possibly by the next meeting. Administrative matters, Mallory, do you have anything?
I don't have anything new as of yet, no.
Okay, can I ask you about two things?
Sure.
One of which is there been any progress on minutes that you know of?
Yeah, actually, I just got a set right before the meeting. So Ryan hired an outside consultant to take the minutes for us. And she's starting from the last set and working forward. So she had a couple questions. I have to go back and review the minutes that she's taken and try to answer the questions for her, and then we'll present them to the board.
Because we are way behind. They're supposed to be done within 30 days or something, and we're months behind. I know there's a little flexibility with the COVID situation, but
yeah. So she's working on it, and as I get them, I'll start shooting them out to you. And she just asked me to double check a couple of things for her. So
great. And then are we keeping up? Is she going to keep up too?
Yes.
So we can work on the backlog, but also not put tonight's meeting at the end of the line?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. And then the other thing is also connection with the annual report we need to pull together.
Okay.
I don't know whether you've seen the one we did last year. I can send you a copy if you don't see it right off. It's where we report how many A&Rs, how many special permits, how many. You can read it actually. It's in the annual report from last year, the planning board report.
Okay.
And we need to begin to fill that out, which is a good project to do along with minutes, right? Because as you're reading them over, you can take the various categories and tally them up. All right, I don't have anything else under administrative matters. Anything else from the board? And then we'll have a final call for public comments.
Madam Chair, I think the last time we discussed that particular that particular subject regarding that report, I think tonight when we were covering the areas of affordable housing, there's quite a lot of good information in there. I mean, the fact that we are contributing CPA funds for tax titles, the fact that we are doing the proposal for the gravel pits, those are very, very important elements that I think we need to include. Even the fact that we're working with the first gravel pit in terms of, even though it has not yet been reclaimed, but we are actually moving towards gravel pit reclamation. The work that we're doing in those areas, the master plan, obviously, we have a lot of items that you have just covered here in the old business that can be very greatly be great enhancers into this annual report.
You're right. I'll try to draft that section as a draft. We should also include maybe the fact that we got it, that it's a municipal vulnerability, you know, it's been identified. There's a lot of stuff we have done. I'll try to do that. Anything else? I'll call for are there any members of the public still out there that you're aware of? Mallory, want to be heard?
We have a James, a G7, thank you.
There's a James and a G7.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone wants to speak.
Okay, if there is anybody out there that wants to be heard, what do? Push chat, right?
Yep, they can hit chat or wave
hand, wave it, Mallory there. Or... Okay, if there isn't anybody, our next meeting is 12/17 at 6:30. And I'll take a motion to adjourn from somebody.
Alice Bill Holmes, I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Anybody want to second it?
This is Francois Steiger. I am seconding the motion.
Okay, it's not debatable, and you gotta say your name in it because it's this Zoom meeting. So, lived all I.
Steiger, aye.
Bill Holman's aye.
John D'Amelia, aye.
Christopher Monroe, aye.
Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Follow up on all those things.